Hello and welcome everybody to the Formula One podcast. We are broadcasting live from multiple places around the country. I've got a few guests on the show today, and out of country. I've got a Canadian on the show, and get his comments on all things Formula One, and we have a few other guests. Not all things Formula One, obviously, but as you can see, this show is a work in progress. So, whatever input you guys decide that you want to give me, please make sure it's creative and constructive. And trolls, don't even bother. I don't care. I don't care for trolls.
You tell people not to troll, they're gonna troll.
Yeah. But anyways, a lot of things to talk about today. One of many things, obviously, testing. It's been a roller coaster ride for many a team. McLaren, in particular, especially with the engine change. We're going to go ahead and start off with McLaren. Fastest lap today from Alonso was 1:17.7. That was on the Hypersofts. One of the fastest overall in testing. Third fastest overall, so that's not bad. Lap total for testing overall, 599 laps. They showed pretty good reliability and pretty good pace in first testing, but second testing they just were racked with issues, and few engine changes and a lot of difficulties and a lot of struck with reliability issues. So the upcoming question for that would be, given the past issues in the past 3 years with their reliability with the Honda engines, given their switch to McLaren, or given their switch to Renault power units, what do you guys think is going to be the significance for their season this year? Do you think that they're going to actually be able to put a fight up this year, or are they just going to be bottom of the midfield again and the laughing stock of Formula One? So, do you think it's going to take a couple of years, or, because they have a contract with Renault, if I'm not mistaken, they have a contract with Renault till 2021. So, do you think it's going to take a couple of years with Renault to determine whether they're going to be a midfield contender, or where they're going to contend with the top three?
Yeah, I'm feeling kind of the same way. I don't think they're going to be a lower midfield pack. I think they're going to be leading midfield and maybe knocking at the door of Red Bull or Ferrari, depending on which of those two is going to be second and third. I don't think they're going to be competing for championships this season. Podiums, possibly. But championships, no. I think a couple of years down the road, I think they'll be good enough to compete, like up there. Like it's so hard to say after just 2 weeks of testing and 600 laps. It's just, I would, being a McLaren fan, I would love for McLaren to be competing for a championship for constructors, but I know that's not going to happen. Even though it breaks my heart to say that. Well, the last 3 years have broken my heart.
Mm-hmm.
But I would love to see them step up and be able to compete right away for points every race. That's my goal, for them to compete for points every race.
Okay, so that brings us to the flip side of the coin. Toro Rosso was amazing this testing. Showed excellent reliability. They had hardly any issues with their new Honda engine supplier. And 835 laps for Toro Rosso, third most out of everybody on the grid. So that leaves the question, is Honda getting it right this year? The past 3 years we saw with McLaren, they had issues out the yin yang. From testing to at least almost every other race there was something wrong, and every race was a DNF, and it was horrible. So after a horrible 3 seasons in Formula One to start off with, is this the year that we see Honda make some decent strides into the midfield, or maybe even the top tier?
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And Alonso in particular. That happened every chance he got. I did not agree with that at all. Like, I was not a fan of the Honda engine and the reliability or lack thereof, but I think he was speaking out of turn. Like, you don't do that.
Indeed. And then to go off and say, well, playing devil's advocate for a second, how as much as I don't agree with what Alonso was saying, devil's advocate side, I can understand the frustration. I mean, McLaren...
Well, that's not devil's advocate, that's just understanding his position.
McLaren had brought him in for, championship winning reasons. He's
Yep.
a consistent driver. He's good at what he does, and he's got good racecraft, and man's good behind the wheel. So, they brought him in promising him a good car. And, when he came in 2014, right? Okay, so, yeah, with McLaren in 2014. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what Rob's talking about.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. If he went in 2014 or if he went in 2015. If I remember right, he went in 2015. So, he was on the outs with Ferrari because they weren't doing so well. and he was getting frustrated with Ferrari because Ferrari had promised him a championship-winning car, and they didn't deliver, and so he goes to McLaren because they promised him, hey, we're good. We've won championships. You see our creds. You know what we're all about. And the only way that they were going to get him in was through Honda anyway. Because, well, actually no. I have that backwards. If I remember right, him getting into McLaren anyway was a backdoor deal. Because Honda wanted nothing to do with him, or it was one way or another, he left on bad terms with McLaren. I know that much for sure. And
I have heard that he didn't have a great relationship with Hamilton, although that over the years has repaired itself. I would love to see those two team up again for McLaren. That would leave Stoffel out in the cold. Stoffel's a pretty good driver in his own right.
Well,
he won a championship.
Yeah, that's true. But I guess where I'm going with this is, they brought him in on the hopes of a championship-winning, season, and with Honda, it was disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. They were having reliability issues, and the hybrid coming into the hybrid era really screwed things up because when they were announcing that they were coming in, I think they were coming in under the assumptions that it was still going to be the V8s, not the V6s. And then when the FIA said, "Oh no, next year we're going to do V6s," Honda had a lot of time behind off the ball, so to speak, to match up with them and match up with everybody else who was a little bit ahead of the curve. And they were behind the ball, so to speak, on development because they were coming in on the brink of the new regulation era. So in my opinion, I think it's partly Honda's fault and it's partly McLaren's fault. And Fernando, him having every right to express his frustrations, I don't really think he should have gone as openly about it.
Yeah.
But he did, he does have the right to express those frustrations and say, hey, something here is wrong. Something needs to be done about it. And, at least he didn't go and, leave the team mid-contract and just be like, well, fuck it, I'm done with this. I'll go do something else until somebody else in Formula One decides they want me again. And, that was the rumor for the 2015 season. And I know that was the rumor for most of the 2016 season. And then, Zach Brown had to do a lot of shit to keep him happy.
Yeah. He went above and beyond.
So...
Okay, gap ahead is 23.9 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And McLaren did make their own engines for a while, didn't they? Like back in the day when they got rid of Honda, or I can't remember because I know.
Oh, yeah, they were always a customer.
Oh, they've always been a customer. Oh, I thought McLaren made their own engines because they make their own production engines and they're damn good. So. Oh wait, no, they get theirs from Mercedes or Audi. I don't know. I think McLaren should venture into engine production But that brings me to going to Honda though with Toro Rosso. What do you guys think about Honda and Toro Rosso? Do you guys think that they're going to show some pace, or do you think that once Melbourne comes around, they're going to be racked with reliability issues, and McLaren will just look at Honda and be like, yo, we're glad we made the right decision? Because right now it may look like through testing that they're kicking themselves in the teeth for not going with Honda, but do you guys think that right now it's just all a show and it's nothing really is going to come of it, or do you think that they actually have some decent pace this year?
Yeah, I think the Honda has it. Yeah, reliability we won't know until that starts to happen, but it's hard to predict if the reliability is going to be better or worse. I'm hoping it's better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as much as it would kill me that the Honda engine would start outperforming the Renault now that McLaren have switched, I'd still be happy for them, because that's good for the sport. That would just open up other teams to possibly accepting Honda as their suppliers, and if Honda can get anywhere close to Ferrari and Mercedes power,
Mm-hmm.
that's great. I would love that.
Because right now the projected power is, I think, maybe 500 horsepower off of Ferrari. So
Wow.
that's
significant.
well, Ferrari right now is, I don't think they're running over 1,000 horsepower yet either. It's oh yeah.
Mhm.
So that moves us on.
I would also love to see a strong Ferrari engine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Well,
not a Ferrari fan, but it's going to be good for the sport. Only two other teams are purchasing their engines from Ferrari, but it's always nice to hear a strong whine from that engine, not whining as whinging or anything. A nice whine from the Ferrari engine. I would love to hear that again. Half the power behind it.
so that brings us to just going down the grid now. We'll go ahead and start with Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas setting pretty decent lap times. I don't really have the figures up in front of me, but I know they were both in the 118s and 119s and 117s respectively, so pretty decent lap times. I know Lewis was one of the top times for overall testing. I don't even think we need to go into how many laps they did. It was definitely top of the list, as per usual for testing. But most of those lap times were on tires that were generally meant for longer stint running and just general overall race distance stuff. So do you think that by only doing a couple of runs on the Hypersoft tires that they're hiding their true pace, or are they maybe they're, I mean, I don't know how to question this, right? So, I mean, do you guys think they're just hiding their true pace, or do you think they're do you think they're sandbagging, or do you think that maybe there's...
I think there's a lot of sandbagging going on in testing. I don't think we're going to see the true potential of the top cars until maybe FP3 at
Melbourne.
Albert Park, yeah. Or maybe even Q2. Because Ferrari loved to sandbag it during qualifying in the first two rounds.
Oh yeah, they do.
Just like a minute or a second, like 1.1 or 1.2 seconds faster in Q3. They just loved doing that, and it's also a good show for the fans. It's annoying sometimes when when you're not a Ferrari fan and you think, oh yeah, my car's goddamn beat, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they've set the fastest time.
Mm-hmm.
Seb's got that little smirk on his face. Like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
We got the time. Oh yeah, they were both
Going back and forth for most of the qualifying sessions over the year. I mean, it was either Seb would set a fast lap time, or Lewis would set a fast lap time, and it would just be a battle of the who could go fastest during most qualifying sessions. So I hope that definitely happens again this year. I, like you, Crazy, will be extremely pissed if Mercedes wins the championship again this year. Whoa, that had bass to it, whoever did that. That sounded like a dragon growling. Anyways, so that leads us to Ferrari. Kimi Räikkönen setting the fastest lap overall. The 117, I think it was the 117.1, or yeah, the 117.0. So, yeah, it was 117.05. And he did that on Hypersoft. So, I think for... Oh, yeah. There's some definite sandbagging going on with Ferrari. But here's the thing now. Sebastian Vettel saying, don't read into the lap times right now. He doesn't think the Ferrari has that good a pace. So, what's going on with Ferrari? If their number one driver's not happy, something must be going on. What do you guys think?
I don't know if he's unhappy so much as just, with a false flag kind of thing. Just,
you think he's blowing smoke up everybody's ass?
Yeah. I think so,
yeah. I'd have to agree with you there, because Vettel's usually pretty emotionless during testing, unless the car is really good. Like last year, he couldn't contain the poker face during testing. And he was even talking about naming the car and everything like that. And that usually doesn't come out until, maybe right before Melbourne, like right before the first race of the season. So you can tell that Vettel was clearly happy with the car from testing, all the way on to Melbourne and from beyond. So, I think I have to agree with you guys that it might just be smoke up everybody's ass, and he's laying the false flag. So we also let's talk about the driver lineup for the next year. You got Seb and Kimi again, but Kimi might be on the outs of Ferrari. Who knows? They haven't set a deadline for his contract, for as far as I've any information I've gleaned. So do you guys think they're gonna keep him? I hate to start the silly season rumors right now, but we're always looking towards the next season in Formula One. Even before the upcoming season starts, we're always looking for that next one. So, with that being said, where do you guys think Kimi's going to end up in the next couple of years? Do you think he's going to stay with Ferrari and play second fiddle to Vettel, or do you think this year is going to be the year he finally snaps and says, fuck it with Ferrari?
That's what I'd like to see. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to see Ricardo either stay at Red Bull or maybe Ferrari, sorry, Mercedes. Yeah. Challenge. Yeah. Well, if he wants a challenge, go back to McLaren.
That brings up the topic then, because Toto was saying that Lewis is a shoo-in for the next few years, and that a contract with Mercedes for the next couple of years is nothing more than a mere formality. So, you know, is this smoke coming from Lewis then, or is he just truly not happy with where he's at right now?
I think if he's not sorry, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, Ricardo just out of Twitter this past month. But yeah, he's hardly on. I think it's Toto trying to make nice, trying to put a good face on it, but I think he's a little worried because if he wasn't worried, he wouldn't be coming out and saying no. I'm sure Lewis is with us for the next however many, but oh wow.
Okay, so that brings us to Ricardo keeps getting brought up, so let's talk about him for a minute.
Yeah.
Didn't have a good season last year. Max out qualified him 13-9, or I think it was 13-9, and
so that would be 11-9. There's only 20 races.
Oh yeah, 11-9. Yeah, so he out qualified him 11 times, and then they've only got a podium apiece. Or a race win apiece. How did they
disqualify you for going the wrong direction? You were going back onto the track. I mean, come on. I know. I'm watching it, and I'm like, you're trying to get back onto the track. Sorry, Rob, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
It's just one of those code breakers.
That's the perk of having a podcast going while you're playing a video game. So, Ricardo, not having the best of seasons last year with Red Bull, and then Red Bull saying, or Christian Horner saying last year, closer towards the end, that this year that they were going to center the team around Max. They were going to build the team up around him, and that he was going to be the franchise driver for Red Bull for the next few years. That being said, Danny Rick has shown that he is consistent, and he can score in the points, and he can score podiums, and he can score wins. So his free agency, he's going to be coming up with that at the end of this season, and he's going to be the top free agent in Formula One for next season. And that being said, he's got a pick of options to go to. And where do you guys think he's going to end up? Well, that's the thing too. Like, it doesn't have to go to Lewis going out, because you got a number of factors.
contract.
exactly. Valtteri is, he's got 1 year left on his contract. And that means that Valtteri can go anywhere he wants at the end of 2019.
Oh, the end of this season,
Yeah.
2018.
Oh, it's the end of this season? Oh, okay. So he can go anywhere he wants for... Yeah, that's right. He can go anywhere he wants for 2019.
Yeah.
And, so that's the thing, too. Would Ferrari want to pick up Valtteri instead of Danny, and Danny go to Mercedes, and Lewis and Danny go head to head with each other?
I think it will all come down to where Ricardo wants to go. Like, if he wants to go to Mercedes, then Mercedes will not re-sign Bottas, and I guess it's up to Ferrari if they want to get rid of Kimi, and I guess it's his decision if he wants to call it quits or move to another team.
Mm-hmm.
If they were smart, they would take Leclerc or Wehrlein. Just throwing that out there because Wehrlein, in my opinion, got shafted at Sauber.
Oh yeah, totally got shafted.
Yeah, and but the thing is, Wehrlein he was a Mercedes youth driver.
Mm-hmm.
So you would think that he would want to stay, close to a team with a Mercedes engine. That's why I was, kind of wondering
why he went to Sauber.
Yeah, exactly. Go to Sauber, which is, in essence, I hate to say it, a farm team for Ferrari. But I know they're not. But it's it's easier to describe it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Haas. Like, I guess I'm really getting that from the game. Like, if you're on a certain team and you get an option for, like with me, I was on the Williams team in one of my careers, and I got an option to drive for Ferrari, Red Bull, or Mercedes. Ferrari and Red Bull were offering second driver. Mercedes was offering first driver, and I was wondering, why the hell was that? It never dawned on me that because Williams was
Mercedes team.
Mercedes. Yeah. So from that point on, I always kind of just associated it with like a farm team, which I know is not right, but that's just, I'm a knucklehead. What do you expect? So.
Well, that brings up a good point. Let's segue into Williams for a couple of minutes. Bottom of the timesheets consistently over past few days of testing does not bode well for them. Not only that, but their driver lineup, not really the best idea to go with.
A lot of experience. Yeah.
I mean, Stroll, yeah, he's coming off of his rookie season, so, that's okay.
Well,
He's
the first 4 races, he crashed out.
Yeah.
The first 3, something like that.
Yeah, he only scored 43 points last year, and he got 1 podium, and that was off of sheer luck. And
he should have had a second. He should have had that second step.
He should have had that second, but a third place podium is better than the.
Oh yeah. I'm not taking that away from him. That was definitely an accomplishment.
So
I'm just saying, like, all he had to do was just a little bit of blocking, keep Valtteri behind him, and he would have had second place.
But let's face it was the works team Mercedes. It's going to have more power than the customer cars.
Yeah.
So
if he had blocked Valtteri, that would have been a shitstorm.
So going on that, what do you guys think with Williams? Do you guys think they're dropping the ball here, and that they might not be as pacey as they were last year? And do you think...
I know they won't be as pacey. I don't know if they're dropping the ball so much as just taking a chance on Sirotkin, and I guess they're not really looking at it that they're taking a chance on Stroll, because he's already proved he can kind of drive at the F1 level. Like, I'm not trying to be a dick towards him, but like, he can drive. Give him 3 or 4 years, and he will be a midfield driver. And I guess that sounds a little harsh, but I know I don't have a lot of weight behind what I say, because I'm not I can't even drive now, so let alone driving a Formula 1 car. but that's the great thing about opinions. They're just assholes.
And
so,
they're just opinions, so.
yeah, and so it's easy to say that they're going to be slower because, well, the practice bears that out, or the testing, sorry. Will they improve over the season? I think Sirotkin's a good enough driver to improve. I think he's a better driver than Stroll.
Oh yeah, I mean, well,
you know, if they were just both breaking in at the exact same time, I would give the edge to Sirotkin.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
He's had more wins at the GP 1 and 2, and you know he's had more wins in the junior levels than I think Stroll had. I mean, Stroll, I think he only did like maybe 1 or 2 years in the junior level, and then it was like, oh, screw it, you know, I'm going to use my daddy's money to get me into Formula 1.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, let's pick another track. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be cool. I was hoping that Kubica would be selected as one of the drivers. Like, I think that would have been better for Stroll if Kubica was, you know, the number 2, I guess, in essence, because he does have experience that he can pass on. Even though Stroll said he wasn't, that Massa wasn't a mentor for him last year, which I gotta question why he would say something like that. Like, it came off sounding really not mean-spirited, but
I don't know.
Like,
it came off as bratty too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Really bratty.
Yeah. Oh, he was nasty. Wow. Like, his fellow Canadian. I know we don't always stick up for each other, but you know, come on. He's the only Canadian in the grid. Show him a little bit of love. Yeah. A lot of people forget that he is that young. Yeah.
Ah, fuck. No, we're changing this. Screw that. Everybody back out. We're not doing this in the wet.
Oh shit, yeah.
Oh well, we'll try this.
Well, it's gonna clear up.
So that brings us. Let's go down to Force India next. Pretty decent pace, pretty good reliability. You know, didn't hear much about any reliability issues coming out of Force India. However, difference in opinions between the drivers. Perez was saying that he doesn't think the car is going to be good enough competition this year, and Ocon saying that he likes the car, he likes how it handles. He says it's you know, feels really good. He says it's, you know, really pacey. It's going to give him the pace he wants to get some points this year. And, you know, Perez saying the exact opposite. So, you know, do you think Perez is just blowing smoke, or do you think he's actually serious?
Yeah, I think he's not particularly happy with his car, with his setup. Ocon may feel completely different about the way his car is set up. I have to question why he would say something like that in the press. Perez, I mean. Like, that's... You know, you're in winter testing. I mean, come on. The car doesn't have to be perfect. But Ocon is happy with it, unless because he feels he's just a second-year driver, he's got to toe the company line a little more. But, I don't know, it just seems odd that Perez would have such harsh things to say with just testing done. That's it.
Ah, no, Ascari, god damn it.
Sandbagging like everyone else, yeah. That's possible,
Oh, I know. I'm gonna set a shitty lap time.
I went with a dry setup in the practice because I knew the race was going to be dry. I didn't want to have to. I did a lot of trying to go, kind of slow in the turns. In turn one, I overcooked the rear end and almost spun.
It threw me into the damn pit lane.
Oh man.
So I didn't even set a time. Oh, it's okay. So,
All-American team.
not much problems out of Haas from what I can gather.
Yeah, they had a very solid testing.
Yeah, they had very solid testing. They had some decent running. Roman Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen set some pretty decent pace, and they're pretty pacey. So I think Haas is going to be one of those midfield contenders this year. Definitely improving on last year's car, and definitely improving on last year's mistakes too. They had a lot of mistakes last year, especially in testing. So to see them have the reliability that they did, I see, what was it, 695 laps. I mean, not as much, because they did have some brake issues, and I think they had maybe a couple engine issues. I can't remember, but oh fucking, I jumped the starts. Oh well. We both did. So anyways, oh shit, Cam left. Okay. Anyways, I lost my train of thought here. So I think Haas has maybe a decent chance at, not best of the rest of the midfield, but they're definitely going to come in 5th in the constructors this year. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think they'll be in the pack. 5th, that's a lofty goal. But if what Perez says is true, and Force India are not as strong as they were, then it's entirely possible. I'd say it's entirely possible for them to jump up into 4th or 5th.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, they did not get that money last year. Not in the, well, yeah. Sorry. What was it? At the end of, they had to be in the sport, what, 2 years?
Yeah, it's 2 years. 3.
Yeah. 3?
3.
The beginning of their 3rd year, or the end of their second? Well, that's the same thing.
It's
the beginning of their 3rd year or end of the 2nd. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're definitely.
That's a lot of money. That's like what, 36 million, or
Mm-hmm.
was it 18?
It's like 18 because Liberty Media lowered a lot of the payouts.
Yep. Yeah, they also get like the. I remember seeing this, but each team gets an extra amount for how many championships they've won. Then there's the one team who's been in it the longest gets a separate payment, which is Ferrari. So they get, and they are the only ones that get that, which, like, kudos for them for being in F1 for so many years, like for consecutive years. But at some point, you gotta just like stop giving them that money.
Indeed.
Well, I'm not a Ferrari fan, that's why I say that. So.
Well, I mean, Ferrari is a huge contributor to why there are so many fans in Formula One.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
everywhere you go, you see Ferrari,
Yeah.
and it's one of those things, like, you know, it begs the question, and you know, they're threatening to pull out in 2021. So,
Well,
you
we'll
know,
see how good their pull-out game is. Sorry, that was just... I had to. I saw the opportunity. I took it.
good pickup though. Good. I
did.
gotta give that to you. So, like I was saying though, they're threatening to leave Formula One in 2021. So if they leave,
same with Mercedes. Mercedes have been rumbling about that too.
well, I don't understand why Mercedes would rumble about it, because it's clearly the regulations favor Mercedes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, not when Mercedes first started. Like when Hamilton joined Mercedes, everybody was questioning why he was leaving a strong McLaren team for a team that had only won one race at that point. He's like, it was a time for change, and you know, Lauda is the one who convinced him to ultimately join. And I think, you know, looking back on it now, it was a brilliant move. Obviously, I don't think there's any arguing that. It was a brilliant move, and for whether or not he had the foresight to see that it was going to be, you know, 4 world champ or 3 more world championships for him or not, but a hell of a move.
indeed, it was a decent move on Toto's part, but you know, it begs the question, you know, what are they going to do to keep Lewis happy? And then at the same time, you know, like I said, it brings up the point. They've got regulations now that, you know, just favor Mercedes because they're so damn good with this new hybrid engine, that it's favoring their reliability and more of their strengths because of the research and development that they put into their production line cars. That it's able to help them, you know. It's able to.
I don't know if it's favoring Mercedes so much as Mercedes is making it work in their favor. That may be just splitting hairs, but like I don't think they're specifically setting the rules to favor Mercedes. Mercedes have made the regulations, like they've made the engine that, you know, they can get whatever they can get out of the way the regulations are set up, and that's all down to Mercedes, the engineers being, you know, quite brilliant. But I don't know if it was the point you're trying to make, that like that the rules were set up so that, you know, Mercedes can win.
No, I don't mean it like that. I mean it.
Yeah.
No.
I apologize. I misunderstood that. So I'm sorry.
No. I didn't mean it like that at all.
Okay.
You were hitting the nail on the head with the point I was trying to make, is that,
okay,
you know, they're not like set up to, like, oh, baby Mercedes to keep them into the sport. No, they're set up, and Mercedes, the reason I say it's favoring Mercedes is because they've just been so dominant since the hybrid era began, that it almost seems like with every new regulation change, Mercedes is the one that seems to come out on top with it.
Yeah, they're like a quantum leap ahead of the other teams before the game even starts.
Indeed. So, you know, with that being said, that's why I can understand why Ferrari wants to leave in 2021, because it seems with every single regulation change that they come out with, it's, you know, Mercedes is, you know, jumping that further ahead of the pack to where they're almost unattainable in some years.
Yeah.
You know, because, like, for example, when the hybrid era came out, 2014, they were light years ahead of everyone else that season. Just absolutely light years ahead. And it showed in testing, and it showed in the race, or in the season, with, you know, constructors and the world championship, and then back to back to back to back.
Yeah.
And it's shown that they are the dominant constructor in this era. And it seems every regulation change seems to only make them more dominant. So with that being said, I can understand why some of the constructors are wanting to, back out. Some of the engine manufacturers are wanting to back out because it's clearly, favoring Mercedes at this point. There's no real competition. It's Mercedes and then the rest of the guys. And, for...
Yeah, I think that's where I got confused when you're saying it's favoring, because that makes it sound like that they're making the rules so that Mercedes gets a leg up on everybody. That's the way it sounds when you say that it's favoring Mercedes.
Yeah, I understand where you're going with that. So that's why I took no offense to it. That's why, you saying what you said cleared it up for everybody, so thank you.
Oh, shit.
So that, with that, I lost my train of thought again. It's hard to run a podcast and, race at the same time, so I'm just gonna leave this on. Yeah, and, it's fairly late here. So we've covered almost all the teams except Renault, Sauber, and we covered Red Bull too. So the only ones we haven't covered are Renault and Sauber. Renault 795 laps. Gearbox issues on the final day, and a few battery issues and gearbox issues for the supplier teams. Or for the customer teams, but not so much issues for the works teams. So, Renault showing pretty good pace. Sainz says he's happy with the car. Hülkenberg happy with the car. Hülkenberg, do you think he's going to get a podium this year?
Sure hope so.
That'd be great. That'd be great for him. That'd be great for the sport.
It would be great for the team.
Mm-hmm.
He needs that morale, yeah. He needs that morale boost because he's had, 160-something Grand Prix, and he's only managed points, not a podium. And it's sad that he took over Adrian Sutil's record. That should still belong to Sutil. I think Sutil was a crap driver and had no business being in Formula One. But, I just don't understand how he's a decent driver. It's just the luck is never with him. And, I think Renault made a mistake, however, with getting rid of Jolyon Palmer. I think they should have kept him. Well, Jolyon did do well in qualifying, and he did gather points when he wasn't having issues with his car. I think the only reason he got put on the outs was because his car had shit reliability. And it came down to the fact that because he couldn't score consistently because of his shit car, he was forced on the outs because of it. I think that's a little unfair. And, they're building the car around Sainz. And, Sainz is a decent driver in his own right. But to push him out for Sainz, I don't know. I think, in my opinion, I think it was a BS move. I may be looking at from, a fan standpoint at this point. But, I can't really see it being a good move from a business standpoint either. So, I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong. But... yeah. Well, like I said though, Palmer had good drive. He showed really good drive in 2015 or 2016. And, he had, a fairly decent drive at the beginning of 2017. It's just, Renault had their reliability issues last year. And even the Works team had some kinks that they were trying to figure out. So, in my opinion, I think it was just a little unfair, to kick him out because, he was trying to make the most of his reliability issues. And I think to kick him out and not give him a chance just because he had a crap car last year is... Yeah. Huh?
Yeah. I said they should have at least let him finish out the season.
Yeah, they should have at least let him finish out the season too, so at least prove that he could score points.
Turn it around, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was just really harsh.
But they didn't give him the option, and I think that was a little, really bogus on Renault's part, and I think that was a really bad move. And for them to do that, and none of the teams wanted to pick him up this year, and that's really sad. He's an excellent driver. He had great potential, and I hope another racing series has picked him up, and I hope he does great with them. Just like Verline, he got pushed out for this season, and Kvyat is a development driver for Ferrari, so at least he's their test driver. He's their test and reserve driver. So, we could see Kvyat if something happens with, Kimi or Seb. So,
like if one of them aren't feeling well on, during the practice, FP1 or 2, they'll throw him in there just to get laps in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Which will be good to see.
Yeah, they'll throw him in there, or if something really happens, we might see Kvyat for a couple of races. But let's pray to God nothing happens to any driver out there. So that also brings me up to a big topic: the halo. It's one thing it's a hot button this year, and Toto Wolff, one of the first of the team bosses to outright say he fucking hates it. I believe during an interview he said he wanted to take a chainsaw to it and just rip it off the car. He doesn't think it belongs on there. He gets the idea for the safety, and he understands it's up there for the safety purposes, but other than that, he hates it. He thinks it's a stupid idea and it adds too much weight to the car, which it does. It's 10 kilograms. That's a lot of weight.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true.
I'm kind of the same opinion. Like, I don't mind that it's on the car. Like, yeah, it looks ugly, but I want the drivers to be safe, and I don't want to see anybody die on the track. And
I get it.
Like, it may have been a knee-jerk reaction to the Massa almost death. Obviously, the flip-flop wouldn't have saved him, but it's more along the lines of if the car goes under, or sorry, another car goes on top of them, or a tire. Although I can't see a tire coming off because they've got the tethers, but it could happen. The only thing it's really going to affect is the vanity of the car and the TV pod view.
Also, the center of gravity.
Sorry?
Also, the center of gravity. Toto says it throws off the center of gravity of the car, and that they've really had to compensate this year. A lot of the teams have had to compensate this year for the fact that it throws off the center of gravity of the car. They can't do a lot with the ballast.
for anything.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that they put on, like the reduced shark fin, that will change the arrow of it, and they work around it. But yeah, like the drivers have all said that they can, like, they don't see that.
They don't see the halo.
The bar in the center, yeah. Because they're always looking further down the track at the apex.
Mm-hmm.
And like if you hold your finger in front of your eyes, like right between your two eyes, like you'll see it to start with, but then the more you do things, the less you see of it.
Yeah, exactly.
It just sort of blends into the background. Yeah. Yep.
You don't notice, but if you put your finger on your nose, you'll see that it's like hovering.
Yeah.
You're
Yep.
always looking at your nose because you don't see it. Because it
Yeah.
doesn't happen.
Right. Yep.
So that brings us to, well, I guess that pretty much brings us to almost all the topics. Is there anything else that we've left out? Oh yeah, season predictions.
Oh yeah. Oh jeez. I was hoping you'd forget that.
So looking at it, we actually got to see some of the true pace of the cars. This testing round, and we're seeing that a lot of these cars are faster. Kimi broke the unofficial lap record today. So did Vettel yesterday, and Ricciardo the day before. So we know these cars are fast.
Yep.
That being said, do Mercedes and Red Bull truly have the pace to take it to Ferrari this year? I mean, not Mercedes and Red Bull. Do Ferrari and Red Bull have the pace to take it to Mercedes this year? Is this going to be the year we finally see Mercedes get toppled from the constructors?
That would be nice to see. Yeah. I'm a Mercedes fan, but I would love to see more of a fight instead of winning by like 100 and some odd points. I mean, come on. My prediction. I hope someone other than a Mercedes driver wins the championship, but not a Ferrari driver. No, I don't like Ferrari. So, but if Seb wins it, then he will have earned it. And
exactly.
That's what I want to see. I want to see
somebody win it.
Maybe
exactly.
someone not in the top two teams.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see like a Red Bull driver or Alonso. I know that's not going to happen, but I'd still like to see it. But even though Alonso is not, by far not my favorite driver.
Well, that goes down to the point. McLaren, Alonso setting that fast lap time today. The third fastest lap overall of testing.
That is so nice to see.
It shows that Renault has the pace.
Yeah.
And it shows that
they can tackle that reliability.
Yeah, now they just need to tackle that reliability. We could see the reliability in the works team, but it needs to get transferred to the customers. And that's the big thing that Christian Horner has been bitching about is it's the reliability issue.
Yeah.
So
with McLaren last year, they got hit with both underpower and reliability.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be happy if McLaren this year got hit with a little bit of reliability issues
and no
but
underpower.
Has the power.
Yeah, exactly.
I would love them to have the power because then that they can compete week after week. It's just,
exactly. And that's what we want to see coming out of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I also want to see Toro Rosso do well with the Honda engine.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because
I would love to see Honda, pull out of it. I'm not anti Honda. I'm just anti Honda for the last 3 years.
Exactly.
That just drove me crazy as a McLaren fan.
Every year, I've wanted to see Honda be able to pull it out of their ass and give McLaren the contention that they deserve. And it's just been shit year after shit year after shit year. And for Honda to come back and pull off, third most laps overall in testing when they can barely get over 500 last year or the year before, that's quite an improvement. huge
I
improvement.
wish we could get some sort of idea what their average time over all of those laps, what their average time was, regardless of tire compound. Just to give us a number, or even if somebody can compile what the average was for the Hyper, for the Ultra,
Exactly,
Super,
and
then the Soft, and just to give us some sort of an idea how
Mhm.
competitive or not competitive the Honda engine is.
Oh yeah.
Then that would give us, a
But,
really good indication.
like we've been saying, we won't really know anything until Melbourne, and and until we get to Albert Park, and until the 5 red lights go out and the green flag drops. It's going to be anybody's guess as to
2
how.
weeks this Sunday.
Yeah, 2 weeks
wait.
this Sunday. It's going to be anybody's guess as to how Toro Rosso does, how McLaren does, how any of them do. And
Okay, I was going to say, I've got a topic to add at the very end: the liveries. What do you guys think of the liveries? That obviously the Red Bull was just a one-off,
mhm.
which I absolutely loved. That blue camo, that was awesome. But
Yeah, I thought it was
wasn't
cool.
The Red Bull, yeah, like the the Renault car. It still looks like a banana.
It looks like
But
a
it looks
bumblebee
like-
in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I was going to say it looks like a ripening banana now, where you've got the black on the
On the outsides
peel.
and
Yes.
a little bit of the yellow
Yeah.
on the end, yeah.
Yeah, last year's full banana I was not a fan. I wasn't a fan of the McLaren orange of last year, but I loved the papaya and the blue of this year. I know you and I, Rob, have had discussions about that, but you absolutely hate it, and I loved it. It's polarizing, but
It's growing on me, in my opinion. As much as I
in sunlight,
thought it
that
was-
car
yeah.
just pops.
It does. It looks really nice in the sun, and I can't wait to see what it looks like on some of the night races when the lights are on the track
Yeah.
and it's hitting all the cars and.
Yeah, and the Mercedes and the Ferrari kind of look the same like they did last year. I think that it has to be like the Ferrari has to look like a Ferrari.
Mhm.
Like,
I think they just got the Honda sponsorships.
Oh, they did?
Oh yeah, we haven't seen a full red car in a while, so it's nice to see the full red, and it's nice to see that they don't have a speck of white on that car, and it's red and black, and except for the sponsorship, since I know that's white. But for the overall paint scheme, Ferrari, it's a beautiful looking car this year, really aggressive looking, very menacing looking, and I like how the Ferrari turned out. I like how Mercedes turned out this year. It's really interesting. They didn't go with the green as much. It's more silver and black, and just a few shots of green here and there, and I think it looks
Although,
really gorgeous.
I was gonna say, like Yeah. Yeah. Like one of my favorite livery changes for this year is the Alfa Romeo Sauber.
Oh yes,
That-
I
like,
was
I
just
did
about
not
to talk
like
about that.
The blue and yellow. I did not like that for their 25th anniversary car. But I love this red and white
Oh
Alfa
yes,
Romeo Sauber. It just looks.
I'm happy to see Alfa Romeo back in Sauber or not back in Sauber, but Alfa Romeo back in Formula One after so long away. And I hope they become an engine supplier soon. I really do.
Oh yeah, that would be nice.
No, they
Yeah,
still have
a
Ferrari.
Yeah, Alfa Romeo.
They have a full competition Ferrari engine. They have most of all their components this year, with the exception of the bodywork and suspension and a few things. All of the components are Ferrari, so they have a complete
last
Ferrari race package.
Yeah, in 2017, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't they have the 2016 Ferrari engine?
They had the 16 Ferrari engine. Yep,
That's
that's
what I
why
thought,
they
yeah.
were really down on the
So
pace
slow,
last year.
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
So this year they
That's a
have
shame.
they
So
have
got the
full Ferrari
2018
spec.
version.
Yeah.
But
And,
we
and
need that. Like the sport needs that. You can't
Exactly.
have such a gulf between like the top three or the top three, then the middle five, and then the bottom two. Like,
which
and the
were
bottom two
Sauber
were
and
just
McLaren
so
last
far-
year.
Yeah, they were just so far off the pace of the middles.
And it was really
just-
sad to see that happen to Sauber last year because, they've been in the sport for, 25 years and, 26 this year.
They're 26. Yeah.
And, they've been in the sport, for that long, and they've won a few races. I think they've won a constructors, or else they wouldn't be in the sport if they haven't won a constructors or two.
I don't think they've ever won a race. I think they only have to come out every 7 years or something like that.
Are you sure? Because
No, they did win a race with Kubica.
yeah, they won a race with Kubica, and I think that was it. But they've been in the sport for so long, so to see them that far back in the midfield, it was really sad. And they've been best of the rest sometimes, and for them to go from a pretty decent midfield team to fighting with McLaren for worst of the fucking
Scraps.
for the worst of the fucking field, it was kind of sad. I mean, I don't want to compare them to Manor, but it was kind of like they were getting ready to go the way of Manor and Caterham and all the other teams that have faltered over the. Yeah, they were worse than Manor last year, and Manor didn't even race. They were worse than Manor for 2016, and that's just sad. So. That brings me to actually another topic that I wanted to bring up. Another big change for Formula One this year, not seeing the grid girls for any of the races anymore. Grid kids is what's going to be going down. I think these kids are up and coming kart drivers. They're in the junior competitive kart leagues, and some of them are in karting, getting ready to go up into the faster one-seaters and getting into the Formula Renault and stuff like that. So, what do you guys think? Me being a Formula One fan for a couple of decades now, I've grown up on the grid girls. Let me get a take from the younger perspective, the younger fan. You're in a generation where equality is a huge demand nowadays. So what do you think from the millennial perspective? Big right move or wrong move?
Well, based on all the stuff that's been going on, I think the FIA just did it just to be safe. Like, they don't want any sexual harassment lawsuits coming their way. So I think that's why they did it, number one. Number two, they've been getting backlash with it, and they kind of didn't want to deal with all of that, so that's reason number two. Number three, they're kind of paying for the millennial population, and the millennial population doesn't really care much for good girls, so at this point, yeah.
Okay.
Who cares?
Okay. What do you think about it, Goody?
I'm of two minds. I think it's a knee-jerk reaction. I don't see that it was that big of a problem. Like, Liberty wanted to make a change, and they, got rid of the grid girls. Not saying that having the kids is a bad thing. That's my other the other side of my my argument there is that I agree that the kids, it's a good idea having the kids. Could they have combined them? Absolutely. I think they could have had the grid girls and the kids even at the same races, not splitting up for different races. Like the models who were the grid girls, they were getting their exposure. for lack of a better word.
Indeed.
You know, getting their face out there, you know, they could put that on their CV. You know, and I to be honest, I did not see any of the drivers even talking to the grid girls.
No,
let
I
alone
never saw
harassing
that
them.
either.
Yeah,
I mean,
Like,
the
they're
worst.
so focused on the race that, you know,
The
it's
worst.
not like they were going
yeah.
out there in bikinis.
Yeah,
They were
exactly.
going out in the clothes, like, you know,
Native to the country.
from native to the country of the race they're in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't see a problem with it.
I didn't see a problem with it either. Like, the only time I ever saw any of the grid girls getting harassed was maybe at the end of the race, and the drivers would try and spray some champagne on them as they were leaving the
Yeah,
podium
that- yeah.
area. That's the
That's
worst
pretty much
I
the
ever
only
saw
time I
them
saw
get
it.
treated. And I didn't see, you know,
Yeah.
a bad look on any one of the girls' faces when it was happening.
Yeah, they were just like giggling or like laughing and smiling, running the other way. Like, the closest I've seen to harassment is when a camera guy accidentally ran into one of them.
Mm-hmm. And that was a
was the
complete and
closest
total accident.
interaction I saw. Yeah, and it was an accident. And like, I
So-
think you're gonna have kids get running over by cameramen because they're at a lower height. But
Exactly.
That's
So
that's no reason to not
that
have
poses-
kids
All right. Yeah. That.
Can I just bring up something? I have an
Yeah.
exception for this one. If you guys didn't notice, Putin was up in the podium. Right?
Uh huh.
Yeah.
If you guys didn't notice, when he was walking away, Bruce sprayed him with fucking champagne.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that. So that brings up the point though. You know, a lot of this debate strews from I hate to bring up feminism, but a lot of it strews up from the feminists. The main debate that I've been seeing the feminists bring up is that it's demeaning and it's degrading to women. Well, you know, what right do you have to take away that person's job? You know, to say that grid girls are demeaning, you know, that should, you know, that argument should get spread to NFL cheerleaders. And you know, I don't really want to bring it up, but strippers and, you know, models and dancers and you know, all that stuff. What about those? You know, men pay women in strip clubs to take their clothes off. How is that not objectifying? You know,
I don't think that's their argument, but
the worst I seen a grid girl wear was I don't know, I think it was back in Brazil. The short skirt, that was it.
Carnival.
Yeah,
short skirts, yeah.
the short skirts
Just above the knee.
just above the knee, and a little carnival suit and top, and that was it. That was the most scantily clad I have ever seen a grid girl in my entire time watching Formula One.
Also, like, they're
When I went to Canada, they had a long press. I mean, they were showing who was voting who for that.
yeah. Like, there were a lot of the grid girls that were feminists, and they were saying that, you know, they don't see it as objectifying because, like, they chose to do. Nobody forced them into doing it. They did it because they liked doing it. It's not a direct quote, obviously. I'm just paraphrasing, but
One of them said that it gave them a chance to represent their country. Another one was like, well, this is an opportunity for me to get into racing. So, and a lot of these grid girls, you know, it's an opportunity for them to get into the sport.
Yeah.
So to take away something for the females to get into a heavily male-dominated sport, I think it's
Liberty closing the door on them.
it's Liberty closing the door, and it's Liberty dropping the ball. Liberty dropping the ball in a big way, because you know it's hard for women to get into the sport. Period. I mean, you know, not to talk about Formula One for a minute, but you know, to use as an example, let's look at Danica Patrick for a minute. All right, she started off in Indy. She had a really good career in Indy, decided to go to NASCAR, and for the past, I don't know how many seasons she was in, maybe like 5 or 10. She was pretty much the laughing stock of the entire community. And it's because she was the only female in NASCAR, and, you know, they're like, oh, well, she can't drive. And, I mean, if you go on YouTube, you could see a whole bunch of videos about how much everybody hates Danica Patrick being in NASCAR.
Crash.
Exactly. You know, the Queen of Crash, the temper. Exactly. And, you know, it's you know, to bring up another example, you look at drag racing and you look at John Force's daughters and how, you know, granted that they're using his name a little bit, but at the same time, it is their name too, but at the same time, they're all making different names for themselves in the sport, and they're all champions in their own right. So, you know, we can see that women can get into the sport, but they have to have the connections. And to take away a connection like the Grid Girls is a really huge blow to the sport, period. Because, you know, look at how Danica Patrick got in. She started off as a model and a Grid Girl, and then they're like, oh, hey, you know, well, can you race? And she could. She's got a racing background. She did well, you know, on the dirt track. She did well in karting. She did well in the junior stuff for Indy. And, you know, she supplemented her way into Indy by modeling. And, you know, she was a Grid Girl for Indy for a while. And then Indy picked her up and threw her in a car. And that was that for Danica Patrick. So, you know, you can see that being a Grid Girl does prove to be a way into the sport, especially in such a heavily male-dominated sport. And, you know, like Sauber, I think it was either Sauber or Williams. No, Sauber has a female test and reserve driver. She was development driver last year. This year they signed her on as a test and reserve driver, or I think just test driver. So, you know, that's another way for the women to get into the sport. But then again, you know, how do you get into that position in the first place? You know, it's hard for a woman to get into it. So, like I was saying earlier, I think Liberty dropped the ball, and I think that it was a push in the wrong move, so to speak, for equality.
So let's wrap this up and,
oh yeah, we got to get this wrapped up. Oh yeah. Well,
the producer is giving me the wrap-up signal, telling him to shut his mouth.
Well,
God,
I guess
talking too much. Get him off the microphone.
we can call that a night for tonight. As far as the schedule goes, I don't know when I'm gonna be able to put these out. We'll try for either a couple of days before the race or a couple of days after. That way we can try and talk about predictions and stuff. But if you guys enjoy the podcast, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and let me know what you guys think in the comments. Other than that, hope you enjoyed what you heard, and I want to thank my guests for being on the show, and thank you guys for coming on, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you.